Welcome back to Every Trend, my lovely trenders. Today, I got a scary, spooky, terrifying video for y'all. I'm just playing. It's actually pretty funny. Today, we're jumping into 10 times dead people came back to life at their funerals. But first, if you're new to my channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can keep up with every trend. Now let's get this going. Horror movies are spooky, but is there anything more scary and surprising than seeing a person that is already pronounced dead come back to life at their funeral? As much as this should excite us, nothing scares me more. Before the burial, you must have even cried for weeks or days and resigned to fate. Part of the shocking thing is that their belongings might have even been distributed among the bereaved relatives. Yeah, some relatives fight over your belongings as soon as they hear you're dead. This means that when you're waking up, you're probably doing so to meet nothing. Are you doubting if coming back to life at funerals is possible? In this video, you will see 10 instances where dead people came back to life at their funerals. Starting off at 10, Tamisha Bucam rose again. Hallelujah. The Tamisha Bucam incident was a different kind of miracle. The 20-year-old woman had first been declared dead after CPR had been performed on her, but failed. The family had called the doctors because the lady had stopped breathing suddenly. Experts had to declare her dead. Since she had cerebral palsy, this might have contributed to reasons for the hasty declaration. But you know what? The Lazarus phenomenon happened after she had been packed in the body bag and was meant to be buried soon enough. Members of the emergency team just discovered that she was already breathing in the bag. She was later referred to a hospital where she received adequate treatment that nursed her back to life completely. But it was still a piece of news that devastated the mother of the girl. Being hurt that her child was declared dead while alive, she had to call her lawyer. She got her daughter back and the bag. Number 9, Mississippi man kicked in body bag. Fellas, ladies, keep your feet to yourself. When Mr. Williams' heart took a brief break from breathing, his relatives took it for an absence of life. The 78-year-old was later taken to a funeral home because his family thought that he had gone gentle into the night. But as soon as Mr. Williams got to the funeral home, he started kicking and fighting to get out of the body bag. It must have been a painful experience for the farmer. Wouldn't dying be more hurtful anyways? When taken to the hospital, he began to recover quickly. The family was elated about this, and even Mr. Howard, the coroner who had carried him from home, was happy. While Howard had been working at the funeral home for over 20 years, Mr. Williams' case was first of its kind for Howard. It was just like an allusion to the biblical resurrection. But whoever woke Williams up didn't even show up in person. If these first two weren't wild enough for you, I hope these next ones knock you off your feet, or if you're sitting down off your chair. Oh, and stick around for number 1, cause that'll be the one. And don't cheat and fly to number 1. Just bear with me here, y'all. At number 8, Watson Franklin breathes again. After Watson had been declared dead, he was scheduled to be buried. The family had thought that would be the final, thinking that they had lost the 28-year-old. However, during Watson's burial, someone found out that his chest was rising and falling. This way, it was discovered that Watson was still alive. He still wanted to cling to this world, to see his beloved family and friends again. From the funeral, Watson was rushed to the hospital, so those dreams of living again would come true. But it was pathetic that he was finally pronounced dead at the hospital. For the bereaved, their hope lingered on. They believed that Watson would wake up again as he had before. Sadly, the young man did not wake up. What's more devastating than losing hope when you thought you had a reason to hold on? Rolling in at number 7, the waiter who returned to life. Life after death on earth, stories are not limited to America. There are many of them from Africa and Asia too. The tale of Hamdi Hafez is a typical example. Hamdi Hafez, a waiter at Luxor in Egypt, was sweating for daily bread when he suffered a panic attack. His system shut down almost immediately, and his family was convinced that he was already dead. Being a Muslim, his body was washed and prepared for funeral. But there's a little bit of suspense. Well, call it a plot twist, and I wouldn't deny. Hamdi's family took his body to the hospital where the doctor would be signing his death certificate. The doctor decided to feel the body of the deceased. This was how the doctor found out that Hamdi was alive. Hamdi's story was such a tragic comedy that many bereaved would have really wished for their lost relatives too, because the hand of death freezes minds with grief of the lost ones. Number 6. Mohammed Rayhan became an audience at his funeral. Over 100 people were killed and injured at Damascus when the Syrian government airstrike happened. Many of the victims were buried right away under the rubble of massive structures, and people found hope in being able to bury their loved ones. After Mohammed Rayhan's family and friends had searched everywhere but couldn't find him, they believed that he was already one of the victims. So they decided to bury him, even without seeing the body. Death at that time was their only hope about him. However, on the day of his funeral, Rayhan showed up with dust all over his body. Yes, rubbles collapsed on him too, but he survived. He managed to get himself out, and here he was witnessing his own burial while being alive. It was both sad and exhausting. Imagine showing up late to your own funeral. I hope you're enjoying this video, trenders, and new ones that I got here with me today. If you like it, hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button so you can keep up with every trend. And luck will be on your side just like it was on some of these people's sides. Rolling on to number 5. Vicuna, the drunk dead. At the loss of a relative, we are most times quick at finding solace in death, because dying is better than missing. In other words, losing someone to death is a single loss, but losing someone to oblivion is a loss of a lifetime. When a family member is missing, anybody you see around can be their look-alike. Also, you're likely going to assume anything from accident to drowning or even being devoured by an animal. Some even assume that they have been assassinated. When the family of Edison Vicuna combed cities and towns looking for him, they held on to the belief that the Ecuadorian would be dead already. Since they couldn't find the body of an accident victim that looked like him, the family decided to bury their version of Edison Vicuna. But when the real person came around drunk, the family and friends were overjoyed. The object of their sorrow had to be replaced to the mortuary. Number 4. Gilberto Araujo commiserated with his family on his funeral. Ordinarily, a funeral should be about the dead, even when they don't actively get involved. However, Gilberto Araujo's was a different case. He seemed to be very interested in his own funeral. Prior to the funeral concern, Gilberto Araujo's concern had always been his job. He had a car wash station around which any other person doing the same business was stationed. When a murder that claimed the life of a car washer happened, Araujo's brother thought that it was Araujo who had been killed because the other person looked exactly like Araujo. The family wanted the burial done fast. However, as they were mourning over the body in the casket, Araujo appeared. While they should be full of joy, many of the attendees ran away from the scene. The family was joyfully shocked to see Araujo again, alive and unarmed. Up next, Fagiliu's heart attack story. Fagiliu's death experience was not so different from that of Watson Franklin, which we discussed in number 8. Like Watson, Fagiliu was declared dead almost immediately. He got to the hospital and had to be buried as soon as possible. Her first death was caused by cardiac arrest at her Kazan home in Russia. Everybody thought that was final. The family had cried and had started getting used to the loss. But again, Fagiliu was a female Lazarus in this case. She suddenly sprang up from her coffin, and everybody watched her with dilated eyes. As the people were shocked that Fagilio woke up abruptly, well, so was Fagilio, that she was at her funeral and was about to be buried. Again, she had cardiac arrest. Relatives rushed her to the hospital, where she heaved her final sigh. There were attempts to rescue her in hope that she would wake up again, but no. This time, it was the final farewell. Coming in at second to last, a Serbian thanked people for attending his funeral. As much as there's nothing some people can't do for love, they can as well go to any length to test how much people love them, even if it can be really unimaginably weird sometimes. This principle applies to the Serbian man we're going to talk about, Vucperic. Whatever prompted Vucperic to pull this stunt, no one knows, but it was like quite skating on thin ice when the pensioner decided to announce his own death in 1997, using all available media then. He also got the notification published in newspapers and invited people to his funeral. Many people turned up for the event. They mourned him profusely, only to be shocked when he appeared at his funeral. He appreciated the people for coming. I am actually curious, what could have been the aftermath of the event? Would attendees feel like, wow, it's such a cute stunt you pulled? Or would they be angry over making them mourn and for wasting their time? If you were there, how would you feel? Peric definitely gets a high five from me. And finally, the one you've been waiting for. The Chinese man who staged his funeral. Tricks and pranks aren't specific to a people. Anybody from anywhere can just wake up and try something weird that would make people laugh and even cry at the same time. Just like the Serbian Vucperic that we just discussed. Zhang Diang decided to use his funeral in testing how much people loved him. Since he had no wife or children, he wanted to be sure whether the relatives and friends around him really loved him as they claimed. An additional reason is that in Chinese culture, there's a common belief that the dead have their needs just as the living. And if these needs would be met, the living have roles to play, especially the part of visiting the resting place of the dead constantly. Zhang's future among the dead was bleak. Only 40 people turned up, and 20 of the friends and relatives he had expected were not there. He was disappointed that those 20 never cared about him, even at death. But he wanted an answer, and he got one. And there you have it, 10 times dead people came back to life at their funerals. If you liked the video, leave a like, drop a comment below. Let me know what you want to see next. Let me know which one was your favorite. And if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. Until next time, trenders, stay trendy.